非常欢迎继续收看佛学英文这一堂课。Welcome back to the Buddhist English class. In our last class, we have discussed about the necessity and the essential points of practicing sitting meditation and walking meditation. And today, we will continue to discuss how to practice meditation in our daily life. Please read a few sentences and repeat after me. During all movements and activities of the day, eating, washing, moving from place to place, job to job, one should be aware of the movements of the body necessary for each activity or of any thought, feeling, or physical sensation which arises predominantly. One who persists in noting all objects as they come to his attention will develop increasingly clear awareness. Noting should be done neither too fast nor too slowly. It should be immediate, firm, and clear, but not harsh. One is not to be lazy and sit daydreaming, but rather to develop an awareness of the objects which is accepting and alert. At a certain point, when the mindfulness is well developed, awareness will be automatic, and there will be less and less need for making mental note. However, whenever attention weakens, one should return to making clear notes. It would be convenient if one could simply decide to be aware. However, we are conditioned not to be aware. Our minds are trained to be complicated, and so it is necessary to retrain ourselves in order to be simply aware. The most skillful way for a beginning meditator to develop mindful awareness is to place himself under the guidance of a qualified meditation teacher for a period of intense practice. Repeat. During all movements and activities of the day, eating, washing, moving from place to place, job to job, one should be aware of the movements of the body necessary for each activity or of any thought, feeling, or physical sensation which arises predominantly. One who persists in noting all objects as they come to his attention will develop increasingly clear awareness. Noting should be done neither too fast nor too slowly. It should be immediate, firm, and clear, but not harsh. One is not to be lazy and sit daydreaming, but rather to develop an awareness of the objects which is accepting and alert. At a certain point, when the mindfulness is well developed, awareness will be automatic, and there will be less and less need for making mental note. However, whenever attention weakens, one should return to making clear notes. It would be convenient if one could simply decide to be aware. However, we are conditioned not to be aware. Our minds are trained to be complicated, and so it is necessary to retrain ourselves in order to be simply aware. The most skillful way for a beginning meditator to develop mindful awareness is to place himself under the guidance of a qualified meditation teacher for a period of intense practice. We have discussed the techniques of sitting meditation and walking meditation. In short, when one practices sitting meditation or walking meditation, one should be alert to notice, to observe, to watch all the activities or all the movements of the body and even the mind. Just to be aware of what is happening in the body and in the mind. Not to make any judgment. Not to feel frustrated or disappointed or delighted. No any reaction is needed in the practice of meditation. Just to observe. Observation, that is enough. Watching, that is enough. Only observation can make one be aware of the truths of oneself, can make one be aware of the truths of one's life. Therefore, one can understand what is happening within and without oneself, and one can be liberated from the bondage of one's life, of one's attachment, or the surrounding circumstance. That is the secret of the practice of meditation. Besides sitting meditation, we also have the walking meditation. And of course, we can extend the practice of meditation to the so-called standing meditation or sleeping meditation or even eating meditation or reading meditation. Just focus your attention. Just concentrate one's mind on a certain point. In this way, one can develop the alertness 24 hours a day. And one can live in the present moment, right here and right now. And then one's mind will not run away, will not wander away to the past, to the future, or to the present. No, just be aware of what is this moment, what is one's action or one's speech or one's mind. Just observe what you are doing, what you are speaking, or what you are thinking. That is enough. And in this way, we can practice meditation in any positions we may have during the day. During the day, we may sit, we may lie down, we may walk, we may eat, we may speak, or we may do anything. But we can make use of any opportunity, make use of any position we may have to develop our alertness, to develop our concentration and attentiveness. And once we develop our concentration, and once we can observe what is happening within ourselves and outside ourselves, the truth of the body and the mind will appear to us. And even the truth of the surrounding atmosphere, the surrounding world, will be apparent to us. In this way, we can understand what is life, what is the world, and we can adopt the correct action. We can speak the correct speech, and we can think in the most appropriate way. During movements and activities of the day, one should be aware of the movements of the body necessary for each activity or of any thought, feeling, or physical sensation which arises predominantly. We have so many movements and activities during our life. Whether we are sitting, we are eating, we are listening, we are watching the TV, or we are washing our face, or we are drinking water, or moving from place to place, job to job. No matter what we are doing, no matter what we're speaking, or no matter what we are thinking, we should be aware of the movements of the body necessary for each activity. Of course, it is the very beginning stage. The first step we have to practice is to observe our physical body, because our physical body is more apparent, is more evident, which we can notice quite easily. At the very beginning stage, we should not try to observe our mind, because our mind is not yet concentrated, because our mind is used to running away, wandering away. Therefore, at the very beginning, we may practice meditation by watching or observing our physical movements, which are necessary for each activity we are doing. For example, when we are eating, we must be aware of the movements of our two hands, of our arms, of our mouth, of our teeth. The process should be noted by ourselves. Therefore, we can understand how we use our hands to hold the chopsticks, to hold a bowl of rice or noodle, and how we open our mouth, how we choose the food, and how we swallow the food and digest the food. It is a very good way to develop our awareness, because 24 hours a day we are doing various activities. We are having different movements. Just make use of the movements of our physical body and watch the variations of our physical body. We can develop the awareness, the attentiveness, or our concentration. And once our awareness of the physical body is well developed, we may go further to observe, to watch our mind, to observe, to be aware of the movements of our mind. Mind is the master, is the forerunner of all activities. If we can understand our mind and master our mind and guide our mind to the right direction, then we can be a good person and we can make good karma and even purify our mind in order to be totally enlightened and enjoy a happy life. When we are washing our face, we have to be aware of the movements of our arms, how we use the towel to dip the water and wash our hand, wash our face. And in this way, we can understand the truth of impermanence. We can understand the interaction between our mind and our activity of washing. The interaction of mind and the body will be clear to us, and we may further understand. If we want to have a good behavior, a good action, we should have a good mind first. We are moving from place to place, job to job, during one day. And we must observe and be aware of the movements of our legs, the movements of our two hands, the movements of our gestures, or the change, the variation of our face. Therefore, we can understand what is happening within us. And then we can have the ultimate truth of impermanence and the ultimate truth of non-ego. And then we may have the wisdom of the so-called emptiness. We can understand that everything is changing from moment to moment, that there is no ego at all. And this truth is a natural process of everything. So once we are born, we are destined to get old, to get sick, or even to die. It is a natural process. If we have such causes and conditions, we will have such result. Nobody can escape from the theory of karma, the principle of cause and effect. It is a good way to understand the truth of the cause and effect from observing the activities, the variations of our physical body, and the movements of our mind. One should be aware of necessary of the body, necessary for each activity. This refers to the movements of our body. However, we still have some activities pertaining to our mind. These are the thought, the feelings, the sensations, which arise from time to time. As soon as we have any change of the movement, of our body and our mind, we should be aware of it. It is a good way to train our awareness and to call back our mind to the present time and right here and right now. Not to let our mind wander away, not to let our mind be diverted, be distracted. And that is a good way to train the efficiency of doing something. One who puts in noting all objects as they come to his awareness will develop increasingly clear awareness. Put this in means continues in. Continues to practice the awareness. One who puts this in, noting all objects as they come to his attention. Noting here refers to the mental note. That means one need not speak of the movement. We need not speak of the change, the variation of our physical body or our mind. We just be aware of the change in our mind. Just say silently in our mind, when we see something, then we have a mental note of seeing. When we hear some sound, we just have the mental note of hearing. When we smell some odor, we just have a mental note of smelling. Doing it silently, have the mental note silently and clearly whenever we are aware of the changes, the movements of our body and our mind. That is the noting. Noting all objects as they come to one's attention. That means when we have the attention to something which is happening, then we must understand in our mind. We must be clear in our mind. We must recollect our mind and say in our mind what is happening to our body and to our mind. If one puts this in, noting all objects as they come to his attention, will develop increasingly clear awareness. Will develop awareness in a natural way. Don't worry about whether I can develop awareness or not. Just observe or watch the movements of our body. That is enough. Because the awareness is the natural result of mental noting. Mental noting will make us be aware of what is happening in our body, in our mind. When we practice more and more day by day, then we can increasingly develop clear awareness. This awareness will become more clear than before because we concentrate our mind on the change, the variation of our physical body. And we have a mental note silently. That means to remind us from time to time we must be aware of what is happening. One who persists in noting all objects as they come to his attention. Objects may be the rise and fall of the abdomen. Objects may be the lifting, placing, or putting of one's foot. Objects may be the gesture. Objects may be the extending of one's arms, of one's hands, of one's fingers. Objects may be one's breathing. In short, everything can be chosen as the primary object of meditation. When we practice meditation, we adopt a certain object as our observation and focus our attention on this primary object, and then remind ourselves of what is happening in our body, in our mind, and have the mental note in order not to become sleepy. In this way, one will develop increasingly clear awareness. Noting should be done neither too fast nor too slowly. Mental note should be done in a very natural way. Don't try to change the speed or the process of mental note. It should be done not too fast or not too slow, but in a very natural way, in a very peaceful way, in a very smooth way. Just have the mental note. This can increase our awareness. It should be immediate, firm, and clear, but not harsh. Mental note should be done in an immediate way. That means once pay attention to some new objects, one should immediately have the mental note. As soon as a new object arises to one's mind, to one's attention, then one has to do the mental note and say what is in correspondence with the new object. For example, we may say hearing, seeing, smelling, or anything which is in correspondence with what is happening. Another note, the mental note should be firm and clear. It should be firm. That means it should be clear cut, no hesitation, no doubt, no suspicion at all. It should be firm. It should be very steady. That means we should know, we should notice, we should observe very clearly what is the new object arising. What is the new object which attracts our attention? We should be clear about the change of our physical body or the change of the objects of meditation. We should not do the mental note in a harsh way. If we do it in a harsh way, we may neglect some points. If we neglect some points, then our attentiveness cannot be developed fully. Then our awareness will not be clear enough for us to observe the truth of our body and our mind. One is not to be lazy and sit daydreaming, but rather to develop an awareness of the objects which is accepting and alert. We are born into this world. We live in this world. We live for a certain period of time. And one should not be lazy and sit daydreaming. We must use this very valuable lifetime to develop an awareness of the objects. We are not born for daydreaming. We are not born to be lazy. We are not born aimlessly. We must awaken ourselves. We must try to understand ourselves, to observe what is happening in our body and in our mind in order to have a healthy body and a healthy mind and live a happy life. To develop an awareness of the objects of meditation. We have different kinds of meditation. We may have different kinds of objects. That means we may focus our mind on different kinds of objects. In other words, this kind of practice is to accept and to be alert about what is happening. We must accept what is happening in our body and in our mind, not to cling to it, not to reject it, not to feel disappointed or frustrated, not to be present about it, but just accept the fact. For example, if you are taking long breaths, you just accept the long breath. Don't try to change it. Don't be affected by the breath, but just to accept the natural inflow and outflow of the breath. Accept what is happening. Accept what is happening at the present time, here and now. And try to be alert. Try to understand. Try to observe. Try to watch clearly. Don't try to cling to anything, or don't try to escape from anything. And don't be confused about anything. We must accept anything, because anything happens out of the combination of a great number of factors. The principle of dependent origination explains that many causes and conditions will result in a certain phenomena. And what is happening cannot be declined, cannot be rejected, because it has happened. And we cannot call back what is happening to the original state. Just be aware of what is happening and accept the facts, accept the truth, accept the natural process of change. Just accept and be alert. Just watch, just understand, just observe what is happening. At a certain point, when the mindfulness is well developed, awareness will be automatic, and there will be less and less need for making mental notes. At a certain point means after a certain time of practice. When we train in this way, when we have wandering mind to a new object other than our primary object of meditation, then we call back our attention to the primary object. After a period of training, when the mindfulness is well developed, awareness will be resulted automatically. Awareness is the result, is the fruit of mindfulness. Awareness means to understand what is happening. If it is the case, if awareness is produced, then there will be less and less need for making mental notes. Making mental notes is only to help us focus our attention, is only to help us return our attention to our primary objects. When we develop our mindfulness in a good way, and when our awareness is produced automatically, we will not have the need to do mental notes again. Because at that time, we observe, we watch very closely, very clearly the variations of our physical body and our mind. However, whenever attention weakens, one should return to making clear notes. We understand that the purpose to make mental notes is to help concentrate one's attentiveness. As we have the well-developed awareness, we may not need doing the mental notes. If we don't do the mental notes, our awareness may weaken, may become weak, not so strong as before. If it is the case, we have to return to making clear notes. That means we have to do the mental notes again. Once a new object attracts our mind, a new object has our attention. Then we have to make better notes again in order to increase our mindfulness, and therefore in order to develop our awareness. It would be convenient if one could simply decide to be aware. We can say that I want to train myself to be aware. It can be quite convenient. We make the determination to practice from time to time. It is not difficult. It is so convenient for us to simply decide to be aware, making the decision or making a vow is not so difficult. But to carry it out, to put into practice, to put into the actual way, it is another matter. It is not so easy as to say or to make a vow, to make a determination. However, we are conditioned not to be aware. Although we want to be aware, but we are conditioned not to be aware. From our childhood, we are conditioned not to be aware. We didn't have the training of concentration. We are conditioned. That means the happiness, the life experience have made us not to be aware. There are so many distractions in our life, especially in modern day. We can see the advertisements. We can see the propaganda. We can see the distractions of our sights, of hearing. So many things are trying to catch our attention. We are conditioned not to be aware. It is quite natural that we are conditioned to be not aware enough in modern life. We need intense training. We need the practice of meditation, the training of awareness and mindfulness. We are conditioned not to be aware, although we hope that we can be aware of everything in our life. Although we hope to be a free person, not bound by our emotions, sensations, feelings, or the surrounding circumstance. However, we are conditioned not to be aware of what is happening. Our minds are trained to be complicated through the education, through the interaction with other people, through our life experience. We are trying to be complicated in order to survive, in order to compete with other people, in order to defeat other people. We are trained to be complicated. And so it is necessary to train ourselves in order to be simply aware. Because the education, the training makes us not to be aware of what is happening here and now. Our mind is trained to be complicated. Our mind cannot be fixed, cannot be concentrated on the objects, on certain things that we are doing, speaking, or thinking. Our mind is always distracted. Our mind is always wandering away. Therefore, we have the need to retrain ourselves. To retrain ourselves in order to be simply aware. It needs a long time of training to have a concentrated mind, to have mindfulness. The most skillful way for a beginning meditator to develop mindful awareness is to place himself under the guidance of a qualified meditation teacher for a period of intense practice. Right now we understand the necessity to have a mindful mind, to have a concentrated mind. But we still don't know how to develop the mindfulness and the awareness. We are always looking for the efficient ways to develop mindfulness and awareness, but we are not sure which one is the best way, which technique can help us the most to have a mindful mind. And here, the most skillful way for a beginning meditator, the most skillful way means the most efficient way. There are so many ways to practice meditation, either in Buddhism or in other religions. We can have so many different techniques of meditation, but the most skillful way, the most effective way for a beginning meditator, that means a novice in meditation, a beginning meditator just starts to learn the technique of meditation. And here is one advice. The most skillful way is to place himself under the guidance of a qualified meditation teacher. To practice meditation is to develop mindful awareness. If a beginning meditator wants to develop mindful awareness, then the best way is to place himself under the guidance of a qualified meditation teacher. That means to be humble, to follow the instruction of a qualified meditation teacher. A qualified meditation teacher is a practitioner of meditation for a long time and who has experienced every kind of happiness, every kind of change in his practice of practice. So he can understand what is the situation of the beginning meditator. He can give the best advice to this beginning meditator. Under his guidance, can facilitate the training and for a period of intense practice. That means just to isolate oneself from daily activities and sit meditation under the guidance of qualified teacher in order to develop the mindful awareness. That is the best advice we may have. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
法界客厅大道场为满足信众的需求，以先进的科技，用影音度众，让学佛的心不必在尘世中追寻。您的发心护持，让本台节目顺利制作，并使你早证菩提，离苦得乐，功德圆满。划拨账号419-56780，户名法界弘法通讯社。
如理审判，正法永驻。无恁是咧吵啥？法界发挥团队，结合专业科技，不断创新，不求名利，坚守媒体道德，默默耕耘。众师云集，广说微妙善法，化导群迷正菩提。如来正法无尽宝藏，就在法界客厅大道场。